Good evening, everyone. In the next few minutes, I will share with you some of the thoughts of some of the speakers who have been with us in the past 2 years. People who are working with these issues, with education and poverty and healthcare and justice, issues that are critical to the progress of our state. To help you understand how 2012 and 2013 connects to 2014 and how it all connects to you. Some of us here are expert in education, some in the justice system, some in healthcare. None of us, though, are expert in all of these realms. Part of what we're doing with One South Carolina is sharing knowledge across our spheres about the realities of these important issues and how they play out in our state. The voices that I will share with you tonight are some of the most insightful, effective, and articulate people in the state and the nation, which affords me the opportunity to be insightful and articulate without having to be especially personally insightful and articulate, which at this stage in the One South Carolina planning is lucky for me and for you. Much of what these folks have told us over the last couple of years is difficult to hear. On healthcare, Ray Greenberg, then president of Medical University of South Carolina, saying starkly that unaddressed poverty is destiny when it comes to healthcare and health outcomes. And Carolyn Wong, Claire, can you go back just one slide to Carolyn? Thank you. And Carolyn Wong of the British Medical Journal, who said, there are some who refuse to say anything bad about our country, but the truth is, the U.S. has the worst and the best healthcare in the world. On education, the late, great Steve Morrison, partner in one of South Carolina's most prestigious law firms and a tireless advocate for equity in public education in rural South Carolina, saying flatly that we have systematically resegregated our state. We have ghettoized rural kids in failing schools. When we underfund schools in rural South Carolina, we are underfunding black schools, and we are failing black kids at scale. On justice, Brian Stevenson, the director of Alabama's Equal Justice Initiative, who said, we have created a new caste system, a society of untouchables, an underclass who can't access our meager public benefits around health care and housing and nutrition and justice. Poverty is destiny, the best and the worst health care, resegregation of our schools, creation of an underclass. There's been a lot of talk over these past 2 years of this idea of these two South Carolinas, that there is the South Carolina that many of us live in, with good access to shelter and food and justice and schools that have computer labs and functioning bathrooms. And then there is the South Carolina that the poor people live in, the forgotten South Carolina, the subjects of the Dynamite Post and Courier series that Doug Pardue worked on for 8 months and came to talk with us about last year and back again this year. The truths about these two South Carolinas are hard to wear. If you were not with us in 2012 and 2013, right now you may be thinking, that's all pretty grim. You may be thinking, One South Carolina is a little bit of a downer. You may be thinking I could use another drink. But in fact, One South Carolina is possessed of more buzz, more energy than any professional gathering that I've ever participated in. Why? Brian Stevenson said to us last year, there is no route to One South Carolina, to that better place you seek that is free from discomfort. There is no comfortable road to justice. It's filled with potholes and dark spaces, and if you're not prepared for discomfort, you'll turn around when it gets edgy and dark. He said, proximities to these realities will bruise and break you. But in your brokenness, you'll hear things you won't hear until you've been cracked. You'll see things that you cannot see until you're scarred. When you are broken, you'll understand things you did not know about the power of redemption and change. All of these people I've quoted tonight are deeply engaged in their issues, are every day fighting in their trenches, and they are happy warriors. Steve Morrison worked for 20 years until the day he died and gave hundreds of thousands of dollars in pro bono legal work to persuade South Carolina to step up to its constitutional obligation to provide a minimally adequate education to all its children. If ever he lost heart, he always found it again. Who that was here in 2012 can forget Steve Morrison pounding the podium and roaring, "Poor kids can learn, poor kids can power up, poor kids can move out of poverty"? Happy Warriors, Ray Greenberg, who led the difficult work that now allows healthcare providers in dozens of impoverished rural communities to examine patients by video in real-time consultation with leading stroke, pediatric, and psychiatric specialists many miles away, specialists who can remotely guide immediate, sometimes life-saving care that was not available in these rural areas prior to this. Ray Greenberg said, "We South Carolinians think the problems are so big, they're insurmountable. There's no hope of addressing them." He said, "That's a myth. There is hope. We know, we've seen, that where we create more wealth, where we bring more economic opportunity, we can greatly improve the health status of the people." And Bryan Stevenson, who has been responsible for reversals and reduced sentences in more than 75 death penalty cases, who persuaded the U.S. Supreme Court that minors, children, shouldn't be sentenced to life without hope of parole, who spends a lot of his time sitting with condemned people, with broken people, and who nonetheless shines like a beacon. He said to us, "Our willingness to believe things we haven't seen, to imagine a different kind of future, is key to changing the future. We should never dare to be hopeless about what we can do to change our communities." Happy Warriors. They're happy warriors. They're hopeful warriors. That is what One South Carolina is about. It's about fighting the good fight. That's what you guys are about. Each of you was hand-selected to be a part of this Diversity Leaders Initiative. Each of you are part of the long game, the strategy to drive change in the state that we all love, despite its potholes and dark places. You, this body of leaders from across the state, and your peers that are not with us this evening, are what Dick Riley and Don Gordon and David Shaw had in mind some 15 years ago when they sat down to entertain the question of how the Riley Institute can engage with the leadership in the state to attack poverty, to drive progress. You are South Carolina's happy warriors. We've seen what you do. We see it in the capstone projects you do with DLI, so many of which grow legs and remain in place as truly valuable community assets. We see it in the super capstone projects launched in the first year of One South Carolina, initiatives that send free health information texts to thousands of our state's expectant and new mothers every day, that educated DLI graduates about the tremendous challenges of childhood obesity in this state, that drove valuable partnerships that in aid of our campaign against teen pregnancy, that put 30,000 books in the hands of children who had none. And we know what you do every day out there in your trenches. The energy that we felt in 2012 and 2013, that we feel tonight, and that will grow throughout this weekend, is the energy of people who know that together you can drive change. One South Carolina 2012 and 2013 laid out the challenges in sometimes jarring detail. One South Carolina 2014 is designed to inspire you around solutions. This weekend is filled with examples of how business people and nonprofit people and education people and clergy people, all kinds of people, are partnering, collaborating, working together outside of their silos, outside of their boxes, to lift all boats, as economist Doug Woodward put it in 2012. We share information, we explore ideas, we bring you together at no small expense and labor, in the sure knowledge that you have a shared destination, that you will find each other and connect in ways that help to get us through the potholes and the dark places to One South Carolina. And so, in closing, I will offer to you, South Carolina's happy warriors, wisdom from no less a person than Rosa Parks, which I can use in this context because she gave these words to Bryan Stevenson and he to us last year. Ms. Parks asked Bryan what the Equal Justice Initiative was setting out to do. He told her they were going to work against excessive sentencing, life sentences for minors, children in adult prisons, wrongful convictions, mass incarceration, prison overcrowding, abuse of power, poverty, and the infrastructure of injustice. Miss Parks listened to this modest list of goals, and she, Brian tells us, said, that is going to make you tired, tired, tired. And that's why you have to be brave, brave, brave.